WBUR Podcasts, Boston.
I'm Daryl C. Murphy. You're listening to The Common. So it's Election Day, a big day here in Massachusetts. Duh, right? And we were talking about how we wanted to cover this day on The Common. And we decided we wanted to talk about something big that isn't officially on the ballot. I mean, sort of, kind of with question one, but not really. And we're talking about the T, the MBTA, and who is going to call the shots as we come out of Election Day. So we reached out to Taylor Dovin, transportation reporter extraordinaire from the Boston Globe, to find out what this day, Election Day, means for T riders like you and me. Taylor, you're back. This is awesome because the T is a mess. And that's like a never-ending story. And so as somebody who used to be a transportation reporter, I just want to take a minute and check in with you to make sure you're okay. You know, are you getting rest? Are you eating? Are you hydrated? Because I imagine you're not getting much downtime these days.
I really appreciate that, Daryl. I feel that's become like more and more common. You know, colleagues are just like generally concerned. My desk is kind of the like commute complaint department.
Oh my God.
It's been a lot, but no, I'm feeling good. You know, we're in the news business. There's a lot of news and I'm hanging in there, but I appreciate the concern.
Absolutely. Have to check in because, you know, like I said, the T is there's always something. All right. So, Taylor, I'm talking to you on Election Day. And though it is not official, it can be said that the T is on the ballot. That's because state voters will get to decide who's going to be the next governor. And that really matters when we're talking about transit. So real quick, can you just explain the governor's role as it relates to the T?
Yeah, so the governor is intimately involved in the MBTA, mostly because the new administration will be in charge of deciding who's the boss at the T. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we expect to see pretty early on the next governor choose the general manager of the MBTA, the secretary of transportation for the state, which also oversees like the RMV and highway. So the governor has a lot of control over how people get around all over Massachusetts.
All right. Now, before we get into the candidates, Democratic candidate Maura Healey and Republican candidate Jeff Deal, and their plans and promises and their vision and all of that, can you tell us what kind of system are they inheriting exactly? I mean, it's clearly a mess, but what are they getting themselves into with this thing?
Yeah. So the next governor really has their work cut out for them. They're going to be inheriting an agency that's deeply understaffed, so understaffed that we've seen cuts to bus service and train service this year. And also an agency that's going to be facing a huge hole in its operating budget to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars come next summer. So they'll have to figure out how to find the money to plug that hole and to hire hundreds and hundreds of people as quickly as possible so that service can go back to what it was last year. You know, it's a huge opportunity. I think someone could really make their career on fixing the T.
Mm-hmm.
I think the two candidates overall, they haven't made many specific promises about how they'll go about fixing the T. I mean, they've both said very general things like, "Oh, we'll improve hiring," but you know, I think like the promises are there, but the how is really not.
All right, so that's election stuff. Now let's get into the T itself. Recently, General Manager Steve Pavtak announced that he plans to step down in January after a pretty rough 4 years, right? You had the pandemic, there's all these accidents, there's budget stuff, of course, and then there's the safety issues, et cetera, et cetera. Now, based on your coverage and conversations that you've had with people, What are folks looking for in his successor?
You're exactly right. He had he was in charge of the T during a really, really tough time. Advocates tell me that even though they don't agree with a lot of decisions he made, he was incredibly accessible and transparent with them about what he was doing. And so they appreciated that. But transit advocates I've talked to since he announced he'll be leaving January 3rd just really want someone with transit experience.
Mm-hmm.
Steve had never run a transit agency before. He'd had a short stint as acting general manager of the T, I think 2 months a few years before he took over in 2019. But, they want someone who's run a transit agency before and who, is very deeply acquainted with operations. I think that's sort of the top of the list. I talked to Mayor Michelle Wu this week when we got the news about POFTAC stepping down, and she also said she really wants someone who is familiar with the T, which can be different than other transit agencies, and also someone who's really familiar with, she called it the community and political context of this state and this region.
So, Taylor, as you mentioned before, the T is dealing with some staffing issues, and that's leading to some service slowdowns and stuff like that. Yeah, just tell us what's the latest with slowdowns and speed ups.
Yeah, so the T has a huge challenge where they don't have enough bus drivers to operate all the buses they would like to, and they don't have enough train dispatchers to run all the trains that they would like to. So there are just fewer trains and buses making trips every day, which means you're waiting a lot longer for your train and your bus. But the other side is that the tracks have issues with them. They need repairing, they need replacing. And so that work is affecting how fast trains can go on the tracks. And so finally, the Orange Line is now faster than it was before they shut it down for 30 days for repairs. It took a lot longer than they said it would, but they got there. There's still a lot of areas where trains aren't able to go full speed, and riders are becoming hyper aware of these areas where they notice trains having to slow down. I've gotten so many emails from Red Line riders specifically who know that their trips are much slower now than they were just a few months ago.
Got it. I'm curious to know, what are you looking out for over these next few months?
Yeah, I think we're in the middle of what could be big, big changes for the T and for transit in the state. I'm definitely keeping an eye on who the next governor is going to choose to lead the agency. I think top of list, riders are really, really wanting to see service increase and service get better.
Yeah.
And so continuing to track how long people are waiting for trains and buses, how fast or slow people's trips are once they're on those trains and buses, following this next administration's efforts to improve those things, I think is top of mind for me.
Well, Taylor, thank you so much for taking some time with us. I know you are busy. So we really appreciate this. And this was, as always, it's a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you for having me, Daryl.
That's Boston Globe transportation reporter Taylor Dolby.
Did you kill Marlene Johnson?
I think you're one of the first people to have actually asked.
From WBUR and ZSP Media, this is Beyond All Repair, a new podcast about an unsolved murder that will leave you questioning everything.
Somebody should be in jail for murdering my sister.
A woman who's never been believed.
As long as they think I have done this, then they're not looking for who actually did this.
And that's what makes it a cold case.
No, it's a botched case.
And a search for the truth, once and for all.
Wow, it just gets more interesting.
Beyond All Repair. Listen and follow wherever you get your podcasts.
Be careful. You're digging in a place that's been very peaceful for a while.
Do it anyway. Dig.
Hey, before we go, there's been a lot of coverage this election about some very important ballot questions. Some were pretty straightforward, others seemed a little more complicated. But it got us thinking, if we could add a question to the ballot, what would it be? We posed this question to a few of our colleagues at WBUR, and here's what they had to say.
My name is Anne-Marie Sievertson. I'm co-host of the WBUR podcast Endless Thread, and my ballot initiative is 3-day weekend. Every weekend, non-negotiable. Everybody needs a day of fun, a day of productivity and chores, and a day of rest. 3-day weekend. Boom.
I'm Tiziana Deering, host of Radio Boston. My ballot initiative would be monthly parades of good dogs in every city and town in Massachusetts. And to be clear, they are all good dogs.
So I'm Ben Brock-Johnson. I'm the executive producer of podcasts at WBUR. My ballot measure is Make Organic Matter Great Again. It outlaws leaf blowers and other things like leaf blowers, and it makes a really robust infrastructure for composting.
Hi, my name is Franny Monahan. I'm a producer with The Common at WBUR, and I believe the good people of Massachusetts should decide to do away with brokers' fees once and for all.
Hi, I'm Miriam Wasser. I'm an environmental reporter at WBUR. I think it's time that the people decided once and for all whether the ubiquitous 3-story buildings in our state are called triple-deckers or 3-deckers. My Massachusetts ballot initiative will put this high-stakes question before the voters.
Hi, folks. I'm Lisa Creamer, WBUR's digital managing editor. The people must decide if Halloween should be an official state holiday. And bosses would also have to cancel work for the day after, too. That way we can all recover from scares and sugar highs.
I'm Sharon Brody, WBUR weekend host and utility player. My Massachusetts ballot initiative would ask the good people of the Commonwealth to mandate free, clean public restrooms everywhere the public ever goes, as it were.
You know, my ballot question would ask if the state should build more affordable housing and put some kind of cap on rent prices because, and I quote, rent is too damn high. Let us know what your ballot question would be. Hit us up on Twitter at WBUR The Common or shoot us an email at thecommon@wbur.org. Thanks for listening.